Guys, coming to you from the world famous Stub Cycles in beautiful Houston, Texas. And oh yeah, look what I get to bring to you today. This is the Yamaha XSR 900. I don't know that I can tell you guys or that it will translate as to how good looking this bike is in person. Loving the tail tidy, the orange and white. Oh my gosh, the gold rims. At first glance, this thing is so sharp looking, but it isn't just skin deep, guys. This is that CP3 engine that everybody raves about, and I finally get to ride a bike that's powered by it. Okay, try not to fall in love with this thing. So yeah, it's got rider modes, it's got a TFT screen, it has a throttle, it has brakes. Okay, we all know what kind of technology this is, but that triple sounds so raspy. So let's get this bike on the road, see what she's like to ride. Before I get too deep, I've got to send a huge shout out to Hunter, Tommy, and the rest of the gang over at Stub Cycles for allowing me to bring this bike to you. Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is such a treat, guys. Already I can tell you that this is a freaking riot. The CP3 engine is so torquey. So it's rated somewhere around 117 horsepower at the flywheel and 70 pound-feet of torque. But all of that power is available right now. And here's the twist. This motorcycle only weighs 425 pounds, full of fuel. It is properly lively. Just a quick, slight twist of the throttle, and she will absolutely just grind her way forward. Oh man, this is a good, fun bike to ride. So as far as suspension setup, this bike is set up fairly soft. Pretty compliant suspension, but it is adjustable. But as it is, feels great. This particular section of highway here has a lot of little expansion joints going over this bridge and little imperfections in the road, and this bike is just absolutely soaking it up. This bike does have an up and down quick shifter, and it is silky. I'm sorry guys, I am getting a little bit lost with this bike. It is so lively in a way that it makes it difficult to compare it to anything that I've ridden before. I mean, it's not an exceptionally high revving engine, and so you get all of this power, all of this response right away. One thing I want to mention as well, the brakes on this bike have incredibly good feel. Oh, and the downshifts are nice. The shifter on this bike feels very direct. It does not feel spongy or plungery. And it just has such an incredibly light feel to it. At 425 pounds, it's certainly light for the class, but the way that this bike carries its weight, oh, it is so lively. So, just going down the highway, I can tell you straight away that partial throttle tip-in throttle response is addictive. I mean, very, very addictive. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and get her onto the highway. sounds amazing. There is a pronounced intake growl with this bike that adds to the theater of it and makes you want to ride it, and I mean ride it, tipping into that throttle even that much more. Certainly adds to the overall riding experience, no question about that. So cruising along the highway here, 6th gear, which is top gear for this bike, roughly 5,000 RPM at highway speeds. Just a quick roll into the throttle. She will absolutely start to collect mile an hour quickly, as we've been talking about before, but it's just that rich, torquey, playful aspect of this motor that I'm finding to be so endearing. It is a naked bike, so you are definitely in the wind with the riding position. Sitting position is pretty well standard, not committed at all, nice and comfortable. Foot pegs are pretty well right underneath you. So in terms of overall comfort, the bike is overall pretty comfortable. But that engine, it just goats you. It really does. It is begging to be part of the fun, I'll tell you that. But with just how light this bike feels and the overall playful nature of it, I can see now why so many of you guys have been saying you've got to ride something with that CP3. And I think I found the right bike to ride too. This thing is absolutely drop dead sexy to look at. The yellow and white, that retro theme, and Yamaha nailed it with this bike. As lively as this bike is, it still feels stable. You don't get the sense that it's moving around too much underneath you. It just feels like a proper middleweight standard bike until you tip into that throttle. Then you figure out pretty quickly that you're not on a regular bike, or at least a regular middleweight. So in saying all of that, I guess the best way that I can sum up the XSR 900 MT09 family of bikes is that for street use, the CP3 really is a bit of a cheat code. And this MT class of bike from Yamaha is making the best of it. And what I mean by that is this 900cc triple makes so much tip-in torque, and the bike is so light and so light feeling that you kind of get the notion that for pretty much anything outside of outright track levels of a request out of this bike is going to be met with absolute applause by this machine. It's just that there's so much torque everywhere. Guys, look, we're in 6th gear at next to nothing RPM, right? 55 miles an hour, and you just tip into the throttle and it absolutely moves. And that is the difference between this bike and any other middleweight that would be out there. We're to consider that this bike is considered to be still a middleweight, although at the big end of the spectrum for sure. but with the responsiveness and the torque hit that this bike gives you, no true middleweight would be able to answer this question whatsoever. I imagine that this bike with an aftermarket exhaust would be absolutely sick sounding. It already sounds good with the factory exhaust, although a bit muted, I will admit. However, this intake growl is certainly making up some ground there. But it sounds awesome in here. All right, let's get her back on the highway. This bike is so eager to float that front tire. It accelerates much harder than I thought that it would. Yeah, you get preconceived notions, you look at spec sheets and weights and all of that. Admittedly, I don't know that I would have given this bike as much credit as it deserves. Another thing, and I failed to mention this already, is how narrow feeling this bike is to sit on. Where the tank wedges back towards you, this bike is nice and narrow and would absolutely accommodate smaller riders exceptionally well. And again, at a dead stop, when I'm sitting on this bike with my feet on the ground, I am comfortably on most of the middle part of the balls of my feet. I mean, it's the whole front part of my foot that's on the ground. And a lot of that has to do with the way that the seat is on this bike. And kind of an added benefit to that is it adds to the way that this bike just feels so small. Very flickable and very manageable. Cruising down the highway, no real buzz through the handlebars to speak of. There's a little bit, but probably to be expected with any motorcycle. Nothing in the foot pegs. Maybe a slight amount at lower cruise speeds, but in general, very smooth. Guys, I was a little bit worried about riding this bike because I was afraid, just because of what everybody had said, like, oh, you're gonna love it, you're gonna fall in love. Yeah, I can see why. It's better than I thought it was gonna be by a pretty decent margin, and I'll even go so far as to say this. If you've got yourself one of these bikes, I'm a little bit jealous. I really am, because this is such a fun, light-hearted bike to ride. It really, truly is, and I can see why so many people do and have recommended that I ride this bike, or the MT-09 or any of the variants. And I can tell you that the big takeaway for this bike is when you tip into the throttle on this thing, it is a very smooth but very substantial hit of torque that you really only find in leader bikes. And I'll take it a step further than that. Whether it's based on weight, gearing, engine type, it doesn't really matter. This bike has leader bike plus levels of tip-in throttle response. And that's saying quite a bit, because, you know, it's tough to beat just the outright grunt that you're going to get out of a leader bike. And oftentimes, you know, that's the one thing that these middleweights will be lacking. But I gotta say, this bike is the exception to that rule. I mean, I'm at a bit of a loss for words with this thing. Mainly because I can't really compare it to anything. Yeah, there are other bikes out there that kind of fit the same mold. Kawasaki Z900 RS comes to mind first, but that bike is a lot heavier and does not have the torque response that this bike has. The lively character that this bike has is kind of standing on its own. Back here, running it through some lower speed. Throttle mapping is very nice on this bike. Definitely not jerky. But I gotta tell you, the brakes, so we're gonna do a quick run up with the brakes. And I mean, they absolutely, the initial hit on the brakes of this bike is so good. Not spongy at all, very linear with how they grab, but they have an initial grab that is so strong. Oh, this bike is a riot to ride. Drop her into our other little S turn over here. There we go. The clutch engagement zone, the friction zone on this clutch is kind of narrow. I'm still getting used to that a little bit, but I will say this, it is very placeable in low speed and slow speed city type of scenarios. And I mean, the brakes just feel so good. Oh, can we do it? Can we make it? No, we didn't. There we go. So just a little bit to get used to with this bike, as there always is with any bike, but again, that comes with experience and with time with the bike. Just an idiosyncrasy, certainly not a demerit. It is not taken away from the fun on this bike at all. Again, the brakes on this bike are so good. That is another huge takeaway with just how much this bike has to offer. I mean, awesome engine, awesome brakes. Such a lively disposition. Tell you what, I feel like I need to spend a lot more time with this bike, guys. Just to get to know the quirks, just to get to know this bike a bit better. I mean, would you just look at the thing? It is something to look at. It's amazing to ride. I am coming away extremely impressed with this machine. That CP3 engine is amazing. I love the torque hit that you get. What a fun motorcycle. Guys, listen, I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Please excuse my enthusiasm. I may have to run back out with this bike and have a bit more fun with it before I have to turn it in. But in saying that, look, if you made it this far into the video, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps the channel out a ton, and I hope to see you on the next one. Y'all take it easy.